Hello, it's for me, to be honest, I have to say this first. It's an honor for me to speak here at this conference because we in Germany always look to the Hartley Institute as a role model how to fight the global warming scare. Thank you very much. Really. So the title of my talk, I mean, suppose in 10 minutes I'm supposed to tell you how climate policies have impacted Europe. And I mean, but I can give you some stepping stones. And then later in the Q&A, if we have one, we should be able to deepen it. So we could have changed the title, of course, tongue-in-cheek, so how Europe impacted climate policies. Or even go a bit further, how Germany impacted Europe's climate policies. But I don't want to go now already focusing on Germany. Let's look at the European Union. The European Union has consistently been at the forefront of global action to combat climate change and leading the world to a low-carbon economy, and in the long run, basically to a so-called carbon-free economy, which is seen by the majority in Europe as a very worthwhile aim. So the climate policies, are very ambitious. And for example, by 2050, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 80%, while some people even say, hey, 95% would be better. However, probably for more public relations reasons, it's not really much talked about the 95%. And basically everything in order to reach this famous 2 degrees target. So in 2007, the EU became a bit more specific and defined targets for 2020, kind of specific targets, to reduce emissions by 20% from 1990 levels and raise the share of energy consumption produced from renewable resources to 20%, which actually still sounds now in retrospect as manageable, and improve energy efficiency by 20%. So, as you know, to some extent, some countries did this, went already ahead, others not so much. And however, we have to see this, the climate policy or this 2020 program, not just as a climate program, it's part of a wider energy strategy. And we talk about the famous energy sustainability, the competitiveness and affordability, the latter is interesting, affordability, and security of supply. And what are the effects of this policy? Okay, in sustainability, the EU really managed to reduce the energy intensity and the famous carbon intensity. But and this is not a joke, mainly because of the economic crisis. Because the countries which actually have a high ratio they use a lot of carbon to produce GDP, were the ones mostly affected by the crisis. So what about competitiveness and affordability? So the wholesale prices dropped by about 40%, which sounds really impressive and is impressive. At the same time, consumer price for electricity rose by over 20%. And these figures you have to take with a pinch of salt. We talk about European Union's 28 member states, and in some countries there was not much change, in some countries there was much more change. So come to the third one, security of supply. The energy dependency of the European Union on foreign sources has increased. While in 1994, 43% have to come from abroad. In 2005, it was already 52%, and soon later, now we're at 53%. So, as I said, 2007, these 2020 targets were defined. And last October, the European Council got together and came up with a 2030 framework for climate and energy policies. So, okay, we became a bit more ambitious, the greenhouse gas reduction of at least 40% compared to 1990 levels. And at least 27% renewable energy by 2030. And this was actually a nice change, which most people didn't realize, but it's very, from a legal point of view, interesting for other member states. Now it's only an EU-wide target. So basically, while Germany is going ahead, installing renewables more than some others, or significant more than some others, other countries basically don't do much, and in a way you can equal this out. But anyway, I think it's more a legalistic thing. So, and of course the famous energy saving is in the 2030 framework also a part. So now something interesting comes about. When we talk about European Union and European Union climate policies, I mean, it's usually a self-inflicted thing, you know, because who are the United Nations? I mean, the United Nations, I mean, it's just nations got together. And who are driving forces behind the actions of UN? I mean, and you can pinpoint it's the United Kingdom, it's France, Germany, and actually even Denmark played a role. And they are also, let's call it the bullies in the European Union who want to really go green, or where at least the bullies, because some of the countries are not so keen anymore in pushing the agenda so hard. So, and what happened just a few weeks ago? The environment ministers of 7 countries, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and Croatia got together and stated that, and you have to read this, we agreed that countries should agree what they can do regarding saving the climate, and that this would make up the EU target, and not target first and then renegotiate effort sharing. Meaning, so like, if we know, or if you don't want to go this way, then we don't want to be part of this, and then therefore don't bully us later. And this is a thing that actually went completely unnoticed. I mean, it was just a few weeks ago. It's not even really public statement, but I mean, we talk about ministers of sovereign countries of the European Union. So, but who rules the energy policy? So traditionally, actually, the European Union had not much say in energy policy. And still today, the energy policy as such is a national issue. And for example, I mean, the very famous example is Germany's exit from nuclear power, where we decided to switch off nuclear by 2022. I mean, basically after 2022, it is illegal to have any nuclear power plant operational in Germany. And it does not matter that the United Kingdom is just building one, and other neighboring countries as well, but I mean, that's the way how we went in Germany. And this process, or this decision to switch off nuclear in Germany, happened actually without the consultation of any of our neighboring countries. So what are the costs of decarbonizing? Okay, the example of France, they have like a longer plan, with is also heavily interventionist, where for a period from 2012 to 20, the costs are estimated to be $46 billion, or per year, it's $5.7 billion per year, which means $87 per head and year. So let's go to look at Germany. We subsidize per year the renewable energy sector with $22 billion, which makes per head $270 per year. So what do we get out of this? I mean, people say, sure, I mean, it costs something, but in the end, you know, we generate jobs, the famous green jobs. And sure, I mean, nothing is really for free. So if we consider that the renewable energy program costs $22 billion, and so we look at the numbers the Association of Wind, Solar, Biomass Industry is publishing, they talk about 300,000 new jobs generated because of renewables. And I must say, to calculate these figures is a mission. I mean, they are definitely not accurate, but at least they give a trend. So we calculated, and we come to something that's less than 85,000. So even if you say the margin of error is significant here, we still can say maybe half of 300,000 is possible. I mean, but still, it's grossly overstated. So that means also when the industry association of the wind, solar, biomass industries said $75,000 cost a job, in this industry, we, with different figures, of course, say, hey, this is 265,000. And this is actually, I would not call it sustainable or not even economical. So what is Germany famous for going green? Well, now I focus, because I just have a few minutes left, on what we do in Germany. So this is a number of wind turbines installed. It's close to 25,000 turbines. If you consider that Germany has about 80 million people compared to the United States, it puts a little bit the whole thing in perspective. And that means, okay, these close to 25,000 turbines, I mean, they're nice. I mean, it's the idea, the famous saying is like the wind doesn't send you a bill or an invoice. So we have an installed capacity in wind of 35 gigawatts or 35,000 megawatts. And now, actually, these are things where nobody can lie or cheat about. If the whole blue field is basically the installed capacity, the light blue. And in dark, this is actually the maximum, what is the maximum output. So, and I don't want to bore you with too many details, but 90% of the time, the output is below 30% of installed capacity. 90% of the time. So, and 55% of the time, the output is below 10%. And it is never, ever over 70%. Never, ever. So, good. I mean, wind, sure, but there is also solar. So what you see here, the graph is built in a similar manner. The total installed capacity is 37.4 gigawatt. So basically everything is kind of like yellowish field, that's all the installed capacity. And these spikes, because it take 1 month, it's 1 month in August 2014, so last year, we try to be up to date. So it's summer, August, it's where, even in Germany, it's a lot of sun. And you see the spike here, a bit over 20 gigawatts. What does it mean? 35% of the time, we don't have any output, which is not so surprising. We talk about solar, and at night there is not much generation. There's zero generation. 60% of the time, we have 30% of capacity. And only 10% or 11% of the time, it's more than 40%. So let's combine solar and wind with what we anyway have on the grid. So we talk about something like 72 gigawatts. And to cut it short, 75% of the time we are below 20% of installed capacity. And, okay, time is really running, I see. And 2.4% of the time, we are more, you can see the better, yeah, at 10%, 1%. So the point now I want to make is, we have these fluctuations in the grid. The grid, electric power, you can't just store. It's not just water where you pump a lake higher and higher. No, the moment it's generated, you have to get rid of it. You have to do something with it. So it's fed in the grid. And in the year 2006, it was basically before we had a significant amount of solar or wind power, we had 3 to 4 interventions into the electric grid in Germany to keep the grid stable. And in 2012, we already came close to 1,000 interventions. And soon later, we were close to 3,000. So sure, I don't want to dramatize it, but because with modern technology, IT, and so on, with German engineering, you managed to fix a lot of these things. However, this costs in every sense. So, but what is the impact of it? This is one of the nicest graphs you can imagine. On top are the CO2 emissions in Germany. So we were in 2000 at 342. And then I don't have to explain the rest. On the bottom you see the blue graph is how much power was generated through renewables, from 38 to over 140. So you really can say no pain and no gain. But so far I gave you a short overview of what's happening at home. Thank you.